At the height of the Cold War, two men in dark suits and shades walked into the San Francisco antique store that James Waste had opened after a successful international career with Bechtel. Their mission? To ask Mr. Waste to serve as an observer for the CIA.
This is all real. This stuff happened. This man has had an extraordinary, extraordinary life and has an extraordinary life story to share with you tonight. James Waste was born in Berkeley, California. Third generation California, as you might guess. He played football and rugby at UC Berkeley. Go Bears! Graduating with a degree in business administration. He had a 20-year career with the Bechtel Corporation. He worked as a field construction engineer and project manager on major power plants, refineries, and pipelines in the US and abroad. And then he decided he was going to have a quiet time, a quiet career as a dealer in high-end antiquities until somebody walked in and announced they were from the CIA. And he spent the next 3 decades working as a covert operative out of his antiques dealership to help evaluate the physical collapse of the Soviet infrastructure. So this may sound like a thriller from our mystery section over there, but it's not. It's the true story of this gentleman sitting next to me. So would you please give a big warm welcome to James Waste.
Let's see how this is for sound. I think a lot of you have read the book, which is unusual. I've been speaking to the Rotary. Most of them hadn't read the book, so I'm hoping there'll be some good Q&A at the end of this, and save your questions. The reason this book was written was I had been sort of drafted by the CIA. George Shultz was president of Bechtel at the time, and he never said he was responsible. But it was more than a coincidence that I was available, and I was asked to go over and help evaluate the failing infrastructure in the Soviet Union for President Reagan. The State Department and the government knew that the Russians were running out of money and a will to create more problems. But they needed some people to go on the ground and look around and see actually how bad it was. At this time, Gary Powers had been shot down by the Russians, and our aerial surveillance of what was going on over there was very weak. And well, one day, I was on my sabbatical. I had a little antique business going for a year or two in San Francisco, and 2 guys walked in. I called them. I thought they were customers, and I asked them if there was anything I could do for them, and they said, "Can we close the door and go into your back room?" And I was a little worried about what was going to happen. And
we're going to make you
they asked me if I'd be interested in going over as an engineering analyst to the Soviet Union and see how bad things were. That Reagan wanted to know. He was ready to deal with Gorbachev at Reykjavik, and he needed some eyes on the ground. I said yes, without even asking my wife, and about 3 months later I was over there. Now I'm going to jump around a little bit. One of the problems with my story is there's 435 pages, 35 pictures, and about 60 segments. And it's a diary in a sense. It's a memorandum, or what's the word? Memoir. Memoir, yeah. And it's, but it does read like a novel because of this background story. And we, thanks to Lydia, we strung the beads together on the storyline. So I'm going to jump around a little bit. I was in Berlin when the wall went down. It's a chapter, one of the earlier chapters in the book, when I described sitting on a pile of rocks with a bunch of guys. We'd come down from a hotel, and everybody with me had been drinking, and we watched them with the sledgehammers and the searchlights going. You've probably seen it on television. And the guy next to me started to cry, and it was kind of funny. He was younger than I, and the guy next to him said, "What's the matter, PJ? What are you crying about?" And he says, "Well, it's over, isn't it?" And he says, "Yeah, what's over?" He says, "The Cold War, the bloody Cold War is over. It really was a war." Okay. That was P.J. O'Rourke. He is a well-known journalist with the Rolling Stones magazine. And at that point, if I had paid attention, he gave me a big clue. I was looking for a war, but I hadn't labeled what I was doing over there as my war. And you have to read the whole book to find out how that worked out.
We have
Not as